Hey guys, welcome to another Thursday edition of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. My name is Nick. Today I'm going to talk about 5 albums that, I was wrong about. I originally wasn't a big fan of these albums, and then, after finally really kind of giving them a chance, I realized that all 5 of these are just absolutely fantastic albums. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you click on that link down below. Go check out the Vinyl Den Facebook group. I know I say it every episode, but it's just a cool place to continue the music conversation. There's also a couple other links down there. There's one for the Vinyl Den merch page. We'll get Vinyl Den t-shirts and sweatshirts on there. There's a link for the Vinyl Den Patreon page. If you want to support the show, it's always greatly appreciated. And then there's also a link for the Vinyl Den Spotify and Apple Music playlist, where every week we're just compiling music that we're talking about here on the channel, putting together a nice playlist for everyone to enjoy. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give us the old thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time we release new episodes. So I've been a really big music fan since I was little. Probably one of my earliest memories is I was probably 5 years old. So I was probably 84, 85. And I remember sitting on the floor in my bedroom with like one of these little plastic turntables, listening to Michael Jackson's Thriller, like over and over and over again. That's like one of the very first things I remember. So I've been a music fan my entire life, and but my musical interests have definitely evolved and changed over the years. And there are periods in my life where I preferred certain genres over other genres, and I really kind of so there are definitely some albums I missed out on along the way. And maybe when they were originally released, I maybe just kind of casually listened to them and then never really kind of gave them the chance. And since then, I've really kind of realized how great some of these albums really are. The first one is one that, I think I kind of formed an opinion based off her first couple of albums, which my daughter was actually a fan of her first couple of albums. So I kind of listened to them kind of casually and never really gave her new album a shot until really just recently. But this is Happier Than Ever by Billie Eilish. I kind of jokingly refer to Billie Eilish as whisper rock or whisper pop because the way she sung or sang, at least what I assumed she sang like over the first couple of albums. And like I said, I just kind of casually listened to them. So when Happier Than Ever kind of came out, or when it came out last year, I think I listened to maybe 1 or 2 songs off of it, and then that was kind of it. I kind of got the same sense of what I got from her first couple of albums. Stuff, like I said, her first couple of albums they weren't bad. There was just nothing really kind of stood out to me. And that's kind of the vibe I got from this album also. And then just recently I picked this up and gave it a spin. And this album is so much better than I originally thought it was. I will say that the title track on this, Happier Than Ever, is probably one of the best tracks released last year. So if you haven't listened to this album yet, I definitely recommend giving it a listen, streaming it, and kind of checking it out, even if you aren't a fan of her first couple of albums. I think like the whisper kind of aspect that she gets knocked for it, and I have to be completely honest, I kind of knocked her for it too. I think there's a lot less of that on this album. And, just overall, just a fantastic album. This next album was released in 1984, so I was probably, 5 years old when this album came out. But I don't remember really listening to anything off it until, probably a year or two later, probably when the videos really got popular on MTV. And that is the Unforgettable Fire by U2. And I will say that I was not a huge U2 fan until Achtung Baby was released. So it was that 1991, I think, that came out. But so I never really gave Unforgettable Fire a shot. I never really sat down and actually listened to this whole album. Probably, I'll say, definitely Pride, MLK. There's maybe like 2 or 3 songs were the only ones I knew off of this when I listened to it. And I just picked this up. I think I picked it up at Walmart. It's probably on sale. I think it was for like $18. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll grab it. Because U2 is one of those bands that, as I've kind of dug back through their collection, I don't think they've made a really bad album. There are some albums that, I definitely prefer over other albums. But, it's nothing that I sat down like, yeah, this is definitely not a good album. So I grabbed this just because, like I said, it is a good deal on it. And it's an album I haven't listened to all the way through. I probably have never listened to this thing until just recently. And, I was really surprised how great this album is. If you are only a fan of, Achtung Baby and anything that U2 has done since then, I definitely recommend going back and checking this out. Because U2 is a different kind of band in their early to mid '80s, and they definitely their overall sound definitely evolved in the late '80s through early '90s and kind of on from there. But Unforgettable Fire is definitely an album that frankly, I was wrong about when I first heard it. Another one of those albums that, to be completely honest, I formed an opinion based off of one or two tracks, and then never really kind of gave the album a chance after that. And this was released in 2006, so I was really kind of into kind of like a punk phase, really for, I'd say, probably the late 90s to, 2006, 2008, somewhere around there. I mainly only listened to punk music, so I never really kind of, like I said, I heard a couple of tracks off this album and thought, hey, that's what the album is, and it's okay. I'm fine not listening to it. But that is Back to Black by Amy Winehouse. Of course, Rehab was the big hit off of this. And like I said, I listened to that track and kind of saw how she acted out in public and her personal life and thought, well, I kind of made assumptions off of for this album off of just that. And, I was definitely wrong about this album. This is one of those albums that if you are only familiar with Rehab, that is by far not the best track on this album. From beginning to end, this album kind of absolutely blew me away when I first bought it. And it's one that I probably listen to pretty regularly now. So like I said, I was a big punk fan from, like I said, probably the mid 90s, probably the first time I listened to Rancid, really. Until, probably within the last 10 years, I've started really kind of diversifying my music a little bit more. So this next one will probably surprise some of you out there because it's a punk band that, for one reason or another, I never really checked out, never really listened to. And my friend Corey, who I was in a band with for, several years in high school, and I've known him since we were, probably maybe 10, 11, 12 years old, somewhere along those lines. But anyway, he's been a big fan of this band for a long, long time. And he actually sent me this album for my birthday a couple years back and was like, look, you've got to listen to this. And from the first song, I was hooked. And that is Suffer by Bad Religion. Bad Religion is one of those, godfathers of punk rock. They're definitely one of the best punk rock bands out there. And I've listened to a couple of albums since then, since he sent me Suffer. And, Bad Religion is another one of those bands. I don't think they've made a bad album. I've really liked everything that they've done so far. And, Suffer is one of those albums that's like, it's one of those must-own punk rock albums. And I got to thank Corey for sending it to me, because had he not done that, I probably would never give it a shot. All right, so the fifth and final one is one that, if you guys know me, if you have watched this channel for a while, if you're a part of the Facebook group, or if you follow me on Instagram or anything like that, you're going to be absolutely shocked by this last pick. It's an album that for a long time, maybe I wouldn't say a long time, for a longer period than I should have, I kind of considered this one of the most overrated albums in music history. Actually, Ian and I, a few years back, did a podcast episode where we were talking about music from the 70s. And I talked about this album, and I even mentioned about how overrated it was. And, I'd only kind of listened to, I'll just tell you what it is. It is The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd, which now is my favorite album of all time. I think it's one of the most, it's really a groundbreaking album for when it was recorded, the way it was recorded, some of the stuff they did on this album. But for a majority of my, first, 20, 25 years on this planet, the only Pink Floyd I really ever listened to was The Wall. And for a long time, I've considered The Wall, the same light that I look at Dark Side of the Moon now. I look at The Wall as one of the greatest albums of all time. The Wall is, in my opinion, the greatest concept album of all time. And that's kind of what pretty much all of my Pink Floyd listening was The Wall. And then occasionally I'd listen to Money off of, or Eclipse off of Dark Side of the Moon. That was kind of it. And then probably within the last 5 or 8 years, I've kind of started going back and listening to more and more of Pink Floyd's catalog, and eventually ended up listening to the Dark Side of the Moon and was really kind of blown away from beginning to end. it's one of those albums that, yeah, there's some stuff on there. There's a couple of the instrumental tracks that maybe people kind of, I know Ian has an issue with some of the, where it kind of it gets a little repetitive at times, but overall, in my opinion, it is the greatest album ever recorded. So, and it's one that, like I said, I've long considered it, or for a long period of time, considered it kind of an overrated album. But, that was an opinion I had really without going back and actually digging through the album and understanding the music, and understanding the story kind of behind it. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Drop me a comment down below. Let me know what some of your albums that you were wrong about, because I'm always kind of interested to see how this conversation goes, because I know there's probably, I know everyone out there has probably gone through similar experiences with albums, but let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me the old thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.